Hi, friends. Technically, we're on break over here this week, but it is International Women's Month, and we thought, in light of that, we would share some encore presentations of interviews with some of our favorite Hallmark ladies. We hope you enjoy these episodes. Just to set the scene for you, this episode was recorded very early in our podcasting career and before Girls Gone Hallmark even existed as its own podcast. This was recorded in early 2021, so there are some very deep pandemic references in this episode, and you'll notice that the podcast name is even different. Just wanted to give you a little frame of reference as you listen to this super fun interview with Julie Sherman Wolfe.
This is a Bramble Jam podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to a bonus episode of Long Story Short, the podcast. I'm Megan.
I am Wendy.
And today we have the absolute pleasure of being joined by Julie Sherman Wolfe, the writer of our absolute favorite movie from the New Year, New Movies lineup this year, which was Taking a Shot at Love. And she is also a prolific Hallmark movie writer. We are so excited to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me so much. And I will say thank you again for the amazing art that you created from some of the dialogue. And that's how we met and found each other. And I have them ready to print and put them on my office wall. So thank you again for that.
That makes my
They're
heart happy.
Fabulous. I love them. I love them. I almost want you to watch every movie I've ever written and make things, but I would never ask you to do that. Yeah,
Okay. Oh, I love a challenge. I love a
saying.
challenge.
I'm just saying, if you happen to see another one,
Will
do.
I can have a whole wall.
We have been trying to track them down as they are re-airing. For those who don't know, that Wendy creates unique images for each one of the Hallmark movies we review, and you can find those on our Instagram, which is Girls Gone Hallmark. She grabs fun lines from the movies, and they're always a surprise to me. That's her project, so I love seeing them.
And my friend Nina Weinman, who, or I guess she say Weinman on TV. Yeah, Nina Weinman. She has another last name in life, but I actually forwarded. I think you did one for her.
I did
for hers, and she loved it too. So, thank you for her.
Thank you.
So why don't you start by telling us just a little bit about yourself?
Well, I've been writing for 25-ish years. Most of those were in Los Angeles. And then thanks to the Hallmark work, I was just able to leave, which was my preference. I grew up in Northern California, went to school in San Diego, and then ended up in LA. So I pretty much did the California thing enough, and I was ready. Always loved New England, always loved the East Coast, and same with my husband who grew up in Los Angeles. So when it was clear that the Hallmark thing was working out pretty well, and he's a teacher and he can pretty much get a teaching job wherever, we're just like, it's now or never. Our son at the time was 7 or 8. So this is about 3.5 years ago. We said, this is it. This is our chance. And we just basically found a house. I saw it online. I knew that was exactly the right house in the right town, and basically put an offer in, flew there to sign the paperwork. Greg never saw the house till he walked in with the keys when we owned it.
Wow.
Because we knew we've been looking at houses for 15 years at that point. Like we had the same, I knew he would love it. And yeah, so here we are. And I have my own little Hallmark world that I live in. And I'm looking at a ton of snow outside, and it's fantastic. I love it.
I love it. So my husband is also a teacher, and I have to tell you that his lifelong dream in the back of his mind, in spite of never having written anything, is to be a Hallmark movie writer.
Aw.
So I'm curious, how did you make the transition? How did you get into writing for Hallmark?
So I started in sitcoms. That was where I was for a long time. And then I had a kind of a dry spell. And then romantic comedy has always been my favorite genre ever. Even before I was a movie or TV writer, that was just my favorite thing. And I wrote a couple of feature films that got sold. One was to Disney and one was to Paramount. And that sort of gave me the samples that I needed to sort of break into the TV movie market. And I was friends with one of the executives at Hallmark for a long time, and it just never worked out. And then finally, kind of all the stars aligned, and I hooked up with a producer and had my first movie with Hallmark. And luckily for me, they just really, really responded well to it. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. And I did a lot of tween stuff. I did a lot of Disney Channel before that. And the movie that I had written that won an award was a young, a YA Disney Channel movie. But once I got into the Hallmark thing, I was just so happy. And I just kind of didn't even try to do anything else anymore. I used to have pilots and try, sitcom pilots, and I would pitch to try and run a show or try and have my own series or do all these things. And then once I got in with Hallmark, I was just fulfilled. I just felt like, okay, I'm just happy I can do this forever. And as long as they let me, I will. And so I just, a couple times I've had been approached to develop a series, and I'm like, yeah, but then I have to move and
Back to Los Angeles.
Yeah. Or in my, my son's he's a tween now, and I just feel like I need to be around.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, until they decide they're sick of me, I'm just going to keep doing this.
Hey, well, I think you've absolutely found the perfect place for you. And obviously, I was looking at your IMDb page, and you are a prolific writer. I mean, you had 3 movies in 2020, 3 in 2019, 4 in 2017. And so I have kind of a 2-part question. One,
Okay.
How are you turning out this much content? And 2, you mentioned that you do some rewriting. So are some of these scripts that come to you like half developed, and they're like, we like this idea, but it's not there. Can you work your magic?
Yeah. So I would say that's not most of them. Most of them
Okay.
were just my thing. The last couple of years is when I really started doing the rewrite thing. Only because it was almost like I was doing it as a favor to the executives that I've become close with at Hallmark, where they just really needed, and I'd like to keep the boss happy.
Yeah.
And, and it also is a great way to develop new relationships with producers. And, sometimes the producers will like the script they have turned in and Hallmark doesn't. And so you come in and you're kind of like, well, who's this person gonna change everything? But then I'll ultimately be, I'll win them over. But so as far as something like Taking a Shot at Love, that was just a script that had been going back and forth, and Hallmark just wasn't feeling like it was right. And I came in, and it was a lovely experience, and I love that I met these producers, and that got made. And I still feel like it's my script because I did write. I did change quite a bit, but then the idea, the initial story that was still the same was a ballet dancer helps a injured hockey player rehab an injury. But there's a million ways to do that, and sometimes the initial script can be fine and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not the way the Hallmark wants it to be. So, I don't feel like it was bad, but it just wasn't the way Hallmark wanted it to be. And at this point I know the formula backwards and forwards. They just sometimes need to bring in somebody who's been around a lot longer to sort of put it in that Hallmark place is what it is.
Right.
And I have another one actually. I have another rewrite that I just finished that is getting made in March. Same situation, similar situation where it was, the script was good and there was, it was a cute idea and everything. It just needed to get that extra little nudge to put it in that Hallmark place.
Is that a summer movie that we can look forward to?
So there's one that I've had in development for 4 years that finally got made, and that's for spring, and that's called Right in Front of Me. And I don't know if that's public knowledge.
Oh,
So anyway, it doesn't. No, they're starting shooting it next week, so it's not a big secret. That one, that's all. That one's not a rewrite. That's just an original. And then the one they're shooting in March is actually going to be for next winter, for that Winter Fest. I know one of you did not like the new movie New Year. I don't know where that came from, but I call it Winter Fest still. And so does everybody else.
I appreciate that. I was a little harsh on that, but to me, it's always going to be Winterfest in my heart.
Well, that's why I stole Winterfest and put it in as Avon Winterfest, because I'm like, well, Winterfest still is a cool name, so I'm using it.
Love it.
So I stole it and I used it. And now I'm convincing the mayor of Avon, who I'm friends with, to make an actual Avon Winterfest because we don't have one. I'm like, I told her, I'm like, you have the perfect thing now. Make it happen.
Oh, make that happen. I want to fly
Yeah.
out there.
Wendy wants to go.
I
Are you
need to
guys
experience
Are you
a
guys in
Winterfest.
LA?
Orange County, just south of
Oh.
LA.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, the only thing we miss is our annual passes to Disney, but not that you can use them right now. But
Not now.
that was my son basically grew up there. So
Well, and now they've
that's the thing we
eliminated them
miss.
altogether. They've sunsetted the
serious?
annual pass program. I'm sure it'll come back in
Like
some
forever?
form. Well, they are refunding everybody, and
Oh my gosh.
I think the issue is when they reopen, they're going to have to reopen in stages with smaller groups. And I think trying to manage, the annual passes, we believe, kind of ruined Disneyland a little bit. And so I think they just need a fresh start, and trying to manage
Yeah.
these million annual pass holders while trying to regulate crowds seems like a logistical nightmare. So
You know what killed it? And I know this is off topic. What they messed up was letting people do payment plans.
yes.
Yep.
Because then everybody could do it, and then you showed up, and people would show up for 2 hours, and the park would be packed because everyone just took their daily walk on Main Street.
Yeah,
instead of-
myself
yeah.
included. I mean, we were guilty of that, but yeah, it got to the point where there were no off days, there was no
Right.
downtime.
The only off day was rain, and that was my favorite day to go.
Yeah,
Always.
Sunday mornings were our favorite. It was the only kind of couple hours of quiet, but that
Mhm.
was really it. And we would have to get up at like 5:30 in the
I
morning.
know.
to get
there's nothing
there.
better. I know, but there's nothing better than like empty Main Street. It's the
Yes,
best thing
I love that.
ever.
Yes.
Yeah, I do miss that.
We
Anyway,
miss it too.
back on topic.
So when you're creating these movies, how involved do you get to be with the production once the script is written?
It
Does
just
kind of depend?
depends.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on who it is. If it's a producer that I've worked with before, they know that I prefer to take the script all the way through production, which I'm doing right now with the one there's just about to start, where even the director's amazing, and it's this woman who is a Canadian woman who I love, and we just hit it off so great. And she's wonderful because anytime she's about to change any dialogue or has a question, she comes and asks me. And a lot of times you'll get these directors who just cannot be bothered with the writer and will rewrite whatever they want to rewrite. And then I'll watch the movie and be like, wait, where did this come from? And there's a couple, actually, there's one line. I'm not even going to say which line it is, but there's a line in Taking a Shot at Love that I did not write that I find cringy. And I'll tell it to you off the
Please do.
record.
I can't wait.
But that was the one thing that somebody else wrote that I didn't, I was not involved in, and it just makes me just, I hate it. So, it just depends. I had one movie that I turned it in to the network, and I literally never heard from anybody again until it aired. And the director took did a pass on it and rewrote a bunch of stuff, and I was like, well, I don't know. This really isn't, I don't even consider it my movie at this point, but whatever. And so it really just depends. I prefer with the people that I like to work with, and it's most of them. Actually, I have wonderful relationships with everybody for the most part. And you just shepherd the script all the way through. That's because if you don't, then the voice changes. And that was the problem that I ran into on this other one, where it didn't sound like the same movie because some of it was my voice and some was this director's voice. So it doesn't feel right. And to me, voice is everything. And that's my thing that I'm known for, is sort of the banter. And generally people can tell my scripts have a tone to them that is very specific to me. And so you can tell when it's not. I try and be as involved as possible.
So switching gears to writing in a pandemic, you mentioned your husband's a teacher. My husband is, excuse me, also a teacher. And one thing that, we noticed in the transition, he taught from home for months, and he's a Zoom screamer. has no sense of his volume. So for me, trying to also work in a home where someone who is scream teaching downstairs changed the dynamic of our house a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
And
it did.
So, with your husband, I would imagine home more than he used to be, your son maybe doing school at home. Did that change your writing process? Did that add
Very
additional
much.
challenges for you?
Well, yeah. I mean, because it's funny. So my workload didn't really change. I was still doing everything I was doing, but the the time of working changed because my son was home. Luckily in Connecticut, it's pretty rural here. It's not. I mean, it's still semi-urban. It's a nice
Mhm.
suburb, right? So
Mhm.
they're back in school in person for the most part, and then but then they had a hybrid for the beginning of the year, and then every so often the class will get quarantined and then they'll be remote for a few days. So it's like it just kind of goes back and forth. But when everybody's home and I'm trying to write, it's impossible. And I
Mhm.
have my own office and I have my door closed and I have curtains and I have noise machines. But there's always something happening where, you know, mom, the Wi-Fi is not working, it's glitching, help me. And there's always some issue, right? Upstairs. And the learning, if I call it his little annex, his little learning annex, it's right above my office. And there's just always something. And then when it's, time for lunch, I usually try and have him make his own lunch, but then, you know, I'm here and he wants to, I have to go make him go do recess, go down to the basement and work out or do something. And I just can't focus in on my own screen the way I normally would have before when I had the house to myself. And my husband generally has been out teaching. I would say last spring when everything happened and everybody was home, that was more challenging. But now he's mostly teaching at the school.
Mhm.
Right now, his class is quarantined, so he's home like right now,
Oh,
and I can hear him teach. And he's loud too. Isn't that funny? He's got that, and he's chipper and he's trying to just engage them, right? So he's
right, of
really
course.
loud. He teaches history. I don't know what your husband teaches.
English and history in middle
Oh, so there you go.
school. Yeah.
So same. Yeah, I'll say he's eighth grade history. That's funny.
Oh, how funny.
So he's got that whole thing going on. I like my alone time,
Me too.
Same.
and and I don't. Oh, and every single day I'd say, oh, I finally have a day where I don't have to work. Like I don't have a gun to my head and I'm just going to putter around the house. That's the day someone's quarantined. Someone has to be remote. And so it's just that time. I need like 4 hours of focused time with no distractions to really get that good work in for the day. And that's the hardest part is just getting that 4 hours or so. And I work for much longer than 4 hours a day because I always
Of
have a bunch
course.
of different stuff going on at the same time. But to get that chunk of really solid work, that's the big change that's happened. It's just hard to get that.
Yeah, oh, go ahead, Wendy.
I was just gonna say, I can't imagine being under a deadline to get something finished and not being able to focus your time on it. That must be
That's why I
so
end up.
stressful.
So try being like well out of college age, but then pulling all nighters because that's what it
Yeah.
ends up being like. So I am I'm not young anymore, and pulling an all nighter is not recoverable.
Yeah.
So like I've done them. I've done a few actually the last 2 weeks. I would say I had a couple really late nights, like 2-3 a.m. working to get stuff done, and I just can't bounce back the way I
Yeah.
used to. It's just hard. So, I mean, but that's part of the trade-off is, I get this amazing life. I get to work at home and all that stuff. But then every so often my friends know this to hear, like, it's hard to get me to do stuff because I'm usually working well into the evening.
Mhm.
I decided to take a little bit of I'm trying to sort of, my workload was really crazy and I'm trying to make it less crazy and take on less projects for a while, just to sort of calm everything down a little bit.
So we've noticed a shift in the types of stories Hallmark is writing, a little bit more
Hmm.
diverse stories in terms of
Yes.
the lifestyles of the characters. And that's
Yes.
something that we're very much in favor of. We're celebrating
Hmm.
that when we see it. And do you feel like this gives you a little bit more freedom when you're writing?
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's just great. I love it. And my my biggest note used to be in the old regime used to be that my characters are too snarky and sarcastic and to pull back on that. And that's not really a note I'm getting anymore, which is
Oh.
great. That's because I prefer to have my characters have a little bit of an edge and be funny and um because comedy is sort of where my background is.
Yeah.
So I prefer that. And then also the stories we can tell, they broadened the kinds of stories that we can tell as well. Like I have a couple of pitches that are into them that have to do with a couple dealing with infertility because my husband and I dealt with that, and that's nothing I've ever seen on Hallmark yet. and more real stuff that could still be fun and light and Hallmarky, but just dealing with a little bit more reality. But still, what people love about Hallmark is sort of that escape from reality. So it's certainly not going to be. I'm not going to write anything like the old school made for TV, very special presentation. You know, I'm not going to write the Emmy winning TV movie about COVID. You know what I mean? Like that's not. That's not what I'm here for. You know,
Right, and that's
I
not
don't
what
feel
people
like
are
that's my
tuning into
job.
Hallmark is for.
Right.
Yeah.
They want the happy ending. And I actually take a lot of pride in that. What we have done is an escape for people right now that is sort of this bubble of normalcy and happy endings, because right now everything else is so up in the air. So I'm very proud to be part of that escape for people. So I'm certainly not going, so while our movies have a more realistic edge to them and tell, obviously show the world the diversity that's all around us that is real, we also still are aware that we are here to give people that little 2-hour break.
Yeah, I think we can definitely appreciate that right now. I'm known for loving escapist TV because I'm a big baby and I need my TV to be kind of like visual Prozac sometimes.
Yeah, my husband wanted to watch like that Hunters show, and I'm like, I can't deal with like Nazis and violence right now. I need to watch The Office.
Yeah,
That's what I'm like. I'm just rewatching, and my son's now watching it with us, which is hilarious. It's fun. It's so funny to see him watching The Office because he gets it now. It's just very fun. So that's what we're doing. We're completely avoiding conflict, like dramatic conflict and violence. So yeah.
Okay, well, you mentioned before we started recording that you, first of all, Taking a Shot at Love was the first movie in the New Year, New Movies / Winterfest series.
Yep.
And Wendy and I honestly can't remember what I rated it, but I do know that as we finished the series, we both agreed that that was our favorite of the 5. We loved it. Great one-liners. And you were kind enough to listen to that. And I've just pulled up my notes because I have forgotten what we said. But I understand you might have some thoughts for us on some of the questions we asked.
Well, if you have, maybe you can tell me like what your burning questions were if you go back. But I remember one of them was, why isn't he staying at a hotel? Yeah. So I am going to look at the script because I am almost positive that I have a line in that script that explains
maybe we missed it.
And if I didn't have it and it got cut, see, now it's entirely possible. I'm going to look at it right now. It's entirely possible that there was this line and then it did not make it into the final edit. So I'm going to do a search for the word hotel. Oh, here we go. Let's see. I don't know if this made it in there, but the line was, he says, "Are you sure this guest house is as good as the hotel?" And his agent says, "Trust me, it's better." And he says, "Then why isn't it already booked up like the hotels are?" Because I had it that the hotels were all booked in town for like Winterfest and hockey and stuff like that.
That makes
So I don't know if that line made it in.
It is possible that we skated over that one line. So
I mean, it's like,
skated.
You're not, listen, it's not, the beauty of a Hallmark movie is that you do not need to completely laser focus on it like you're watching like a Christopher Nolan movie where you're going to miss something, right? So you need to I get that people are mostly doing something else or on their phones when they're watching the movies. But yes, that was the answer to that question. And I don't know if it still made it, but that's the answer. The other reason that I give is the joke answer. Why isn't he staying at a hotel? And the answer is because then there wouldn't be a Hallmark movie.
Of course.
Because
of course.
So like when I hear reviews, sometimes I laugh because it's like, well, I always say, it's not a documentary. So obviously there has to be a buy-in to the situation. So obviously, like we have to get him to stay in the guest house because that's the cute thing about it, right? So we try and get through that the why of it without spending too much time explaining because it's just sort of a buy. You just sort of have to be like, yep, okay, well, it's a Hallmark movie and that's what's happening. That's so like we try and explain it and not have plot holes, but at the same time, we don't want to spend an entire page explaining that the hotels are booked in Avon and why. Because, I had a whole thing in an old draft about how there was a hockey tournament or a Winterfest, people are staying there, or there's only one hotel in town and it's I had a whole thing about it, but then ultimately they just tell you to cut it because we're always running long.
Yeah, it works
Right.
better
That's
if he's in her backyard, of course.
Of course, because
He can get there
that's,
during the ice storm.
yeah, I always say because movie, because script. That's why. That's the answer. The other one was yes, Avon is a small enough town that you can leave a key under the mat. I'm not kidding. But I will say there has been a rash of car thefts in Avon because people are coming over the hill like in roving gangs and driving around all the neighborhoods and trying to steal cars with open doors because people leave their cars open and their keys in the car.
Oh my goodness.
Now,
Wow.
yeah, so we know from being from Los Angeles that we do not leave our keys in our cars and our car doors unlocked, and we do not leave
Never.
open things, and we just don't. Like I never understood that when I moved here. I always lock my car at night and put the keys inside. But apparently here people don't, and that's where that's coming from. So that's another question you had. And now the Huga thing,
Oh,
right?
yes.
So that was a bigger part of the earlier drafts where that's her thing. I have all these books in my living room about Huga, and I was into this before Frozen took it, because Frozen the musical made a song about it, but
I
I was
do
always
remember
like
that,
into
yes.
this before. I was into this concept a long time ago. And I always wanted to use it. And they needed a way to kind of introduce that word that wasn't sort of, it just needed to, people needed to see the word. And because I had a whole bunch of jokes about it and stuff. So I think they just wanted to see it on the sign. So we just decided that her Norwegian family named it that because they came from Norway. That was the quick solution to them wanting the audience to see the word, to understand why he was having trouble pronouncing it or any of that stuff.
So the sign
So
was
these are-
created for the movie then.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I have a
That's
question
correct.
which you can choose not to answer to protect the innocent, but can Luke McFarlane skate?
Yes.
Okay.
He can.
Does he have a skating double?
He did have a double for some of the hockey bits. He's actually, what's funny is that he is a Juilliard trained actor and took dance and was a better dancer. This is what Alexa said, than she was. So when he does that pirouette, that was legit. Like he already knew how to do that.
Oh, funny.
Hockey, he's Canadian, so he knew how to skate because that's just the rule of being a Canadian, is that you know how to ice skate. And he learned how to juggle the puck on the stick because of the script. And he sent me a video of him practicing and learning. And he was, showing me he was so excited that he learned how to do it. So, for the hockey action scenes, they had a bunch of actual hockey players wearing the Rangers stuff, filming that. And I actually have one of those. I have one of those jerseys. They put Sherm on the back.
I
and
saw on your
in
Instagram.
there.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's
I was
awesome.
I love it. I'm so excited. And the Wolf Pack, that's the local. I was actually kind of hoping to get a Wolf Pack jersey because that's actually the real minor league team. That's why I said it here, because it made sense to the story completely that he would have to come to the minor league team to get back up, to get ready, and that it's right. We are a suburb of Hartford, so it actually legitimately made sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I said it. That's why it worked to set it here. Because I could have said any movie here that I've had this whole time, but this made sense to me. Like One Royal Holiday was also set in Connecticut and shot in Connecticut, but I made up a town name based in a combination of Simsbury, which is the next town over from Avon, and Kent, which is a very beautiful town a few minutes away. And I made it Kentsbury. Yes. But they shot it in a totally different part of Connecticut because it was one of the first movies back after COVID. And it was shot in the corner of Connecticut that basically nobody lives in. And everybody just kind of quarantined for 2 weeks and then they made the movie.
Wow. Well, so we didn't review that one, but I did watch it. And I just, as a side note, wanted to say I really enjoyed that. That movie made me cry.
Thanks.
I thought there were so many sweet moments. I loved the Queen's character. And
I love
how
her.
warm and loving she was in that movie. And I really enjoyed that.
That cast will never get again unless they do a sequel because they are all huge Broadway stars. And cannot believe we got them, but they had nothing else to do, so they did it. But
Oh.
they are, I mean, Victoria Clark, who played the Queen, is a gigantic. She's a Tony Award winning Broadway star. Laura Osnes, been on Broadway forever, and Aaron Tveit, the Prince, is the lead in Moulin Rouge, and then the girl who played Sarah, the mayor, is in Hamilton she's Eliza in Hamilton on Broadway while it's running, and so it's like this huge group of fabulousness, and just I needed to do a sequel where they sing. But-
Yes.
Oh,
And
how
not just
awesome.
a quick Christmas Carol clip.
Well, they didn't let. I mean, a lot of people got on me for not letting them, for not having the more singing. But that was not my choice. I would have had them doing the entire thing as a musical, but they did not want to. They wanted.
Oh
to
my
be
gosh.
They
I
wanted
love
to be
that.
actors in this one.
Yeah.
So
Now,
we did.
was that filmed during the winter in Connecticut? Because the snow looked very real in that.
That was summer, and it was
Oh.
hot.
Oh, I'm impressed.
I can't even tell you. I had the one day they finally let me go on set. I had to go get a COVID test in the morning, and then I could go over there. And I brought my two friends that are the biggest Hallmark fans. I was going to have everyone I know be in this movie before it was COVID, because I could have had like everyone I know be extras, but this
Mhm.
wasn't going to work now. So I got a couple of my friends. They had to go bring all the cutest winter clothes they had and do wardrobe. So I'm like in shorts and a t-shirt and flip-flops, and they are in like heaviest winter coats, sweating, just in hats, and they're in it. They're in the movie at the beginning when at the donut shop. They're the ones that just get served right before she goes to the counter, and
Get her
it's so
Christmas
funny because we
stroller.
have these pictures of the two of them just dying, and I'm in shorts, and it was funny. It was the hottest day of the whole summer.
Of
That-
Oh my
course.
gosh.
Yeah,
Well,
and
I
then had
remember
the-
there's
Go ahead,
the
sorry.
scenes where they're snowed in and there's big mounds of snow. It looked very good. I was very impressed. So
they do a really this crew in Connecticut. They've done a lot of really good stuff for Hallmark, and we're trying to figure out another movie to do because I really love working with them. But they're really good at it, and a lot of it is post-production digital stuff too.
Ah.
But the fake snow looks great, and they kind of melt the edges of the cotton so it looks like the edge of snow.
Mhm.
They have a whole way of doing it that's really cool.
Well,
But
it's
yeah,
come
it
a
was
long
summer.
way because my husband and I were watching one of the earliest Countdown to Christmas movies from
Mhm.
how it was old, and it was very clearly like cotton batting rolled out on the ground that they were walking on. And I was
Yeah.
like, they've definitely improved their fake snow
I mean,
abilities.
just
since then.
digital snow. I mean, just digital snow has changed it all, right? That they can literally just make snowfall at
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
time
on the screen. Yep.
digitally. Yeah.
I have a quick question back
Mhm.
to taking a shot at love. Now,
Sure.
was there some sort of deal between the New York Rangers? Because I was surprised that you guys got to for Luke
Yeah.
to wear that merchandise and all that stuff throughout the movie.
Yeah, they sent the script to the Rangers and asked if they could do it, and they really were into it. And actually now they're so happy with the publicity they got, and sort of that they loved what happened, and now they're kind of interested in other. Madison Square Garden as a company is interested in other connections, and I do have something going on, with them, but I really can't say what it is. But it's
Exciting.
but there's stuff, it's cool. It's a nice little. I liked it because it's hard enough to get guys to watch Hallmark, but at least this movie I felt like had enough stuff to kind of keep them interested. Like air hockey and hockey and
Oh, I
you know,
love that scene so
just
much.
guy stuff, and I had a lot more guy stuff before,
Guy
and it kind of
stuff.
went away. Like I had, well, in my mind, a lot of the stuff was in at a pond. I was really hoping they would get a pond for a lot of these
Oh,
hockey scenes
that would've been
that she
beautiful.
had a pond at her property. Because I was picturing this neighbor of mine who has a really beautiful big house and a super cute cottage and a huge pond that's always frozen over, and there's always kids skating on it. So that was sort of my vision of where Felix, the boy, and everybody, that's
Mhm.
where they were doing all that stuff, was going to be on the pond. But they couldn't. Oddly enough, they could not find a way to make that happen in Canada.
Well, speaking of Felix, I loved that little character. The boy who played him was awesome. So awesome. Beautiful dancer.
Amazing, right? Can you believe that?
Yeah.
He actually was Billy Elliot on, I guess, whatever Canadian's version of Broadway is. So he was legit, and he played
Oh.
hockey. I could not believe we cast the actual real version of this character. It was perfect.
And I really liked that and tell me, was this part of your writing, was that it was like this micro messaging of you can do both. You can be a dancer and you can be a hockey player. You don't have to be in this box. Yeah, I loved it.
Yes, that was very on purpose. My son loves to play tackle football and is a great actor and saxophone player. And, I always tell him, you got to be, he's a Renaissance man in training. Yeah. Just got to do, a jack of all trades kind of a thing. It's hard though. It's hard to be a kid like that, where you're not kind of into your one thing. That you have lots of different things, but it actually makes it a little harder.
Yeah.
Well, and especially, go ahead, Wendy.
I was going to say, we are both moms of tweens and teens as well. So,
oh, are you?
We understand. Yeah, we understand. We understand. Definitely.
Well, and I think, it's also hard if your one thing isn't soccer or baseball, right? Like my 13-year-old, his thing pre-COVID was bowling. Like he's a bowler and bowls competitively, which is bizarre that it's a thing, but that's his thing. And, people always kind of give you a second glance when that's like his quote sport. But I think it is hard if
out of the mainstream. It's hard.
Yeah.
Right.
That's amazing though. That's really cool.
Yeah, he loves it. And I love that it's always indoors and air conditioned.
Oh, for sure. Well, he doesn't, soccer in Valencia, which is where we lived. It was brutal when he played. When I was hoping he would be a soccer guy because I played soccer, and I was hoping he'd be a swimmer because I was a swimmer, and none of those things happened, and I had to sort of get over it. And we finally figured out how much he loves football when he started playing flag. So that's his sport. And as a Jewish mother, the thought of him playing tackle is not great for me, but they have a lot more safety rules and helmets in place now than. I'm not that worried. I'm not as worried about it. But yeah, but he also is a really great actor, and that's definitely a hard thing to balance. It's like a High School Musical, basically.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
right. I mean, so it's tough to be. Yeah, it's just tough to be anything outside the mainstream at this age.
Yeah, that's nice that he's got
rebooted new show.
What? Oh, of High School Musical?
Yeah, the Disney Plus.
Wait, what? Oh, I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's so good. Honestly, even as an adult, you'll enjoy it. High School Musical, the musical, the series is what it's called.
I think I watched one. I think I watched one, but I wasn't paying close enough attention. I'm obsessed with WandaVision right now, like completely obsessed with it. So that's my one appointment television.
I haven't watched that yet. Megan, have you watched
Oh my God.
No, because I'm afraid I won't be able to follow it. I've seen pretty much all of the Marvel movies, but I don't have like all of the details in my brain. So I kind of feel like, am I going to know what's happening?
I think you will.
Okay. Well, also we have the internet, so I feel like I could maybe look things up.
But if you're a fan of television and just sitcoms and all that, it is just genius. I can't even tell you how perfectly they do the genres of sitcoms in the years that they're doing as they go up in years, from like the black and white ones to the Brady Bunch, tied to the 80s Full House stuff. That's where we're at now, is the 80s one. It was so genius. And I can't wait because I feel like this week they're going to do like Friends or something, or some, those 90s sitcoms. I cannot wait. It's just the best. As a writer, and I'm really critical of other TV stuff.
Of course.
And it's hard to watch sort of just for fun, but my mind gets blown every week. I love it.
I have to watch it. I'll watch it this weekend.
Try it now.
I know, me too.
So you talked a little bit about the spring movie you have coming up. Can you tell us what else you're currently working on?
So besides the one for spring and the one for next winter, I have a Christmas movie that didn't quite make it in time for last year, so we're making it for this year. So I already wrote it, which is cool. So I know I have a Christmas movie coming. Not as high profile as One Royal Holiday, but I think it's just a nice little Christmas movie. And then I have two very high profile projects that I cannot talk about that are both involving sort of name people and things. So I can't say anything
on the Hallmark channel, or you can't even say that?
No, it's Hallmark.
Okay.
It's just, I just, until everything's always under the vest until it's not. And
sure.
So, but I'm really excited about those. And what's fun is that there's a whole team in New York City for Hallmark, and it's really been fun to kind of work with them. And just we all feel like we're kind of, we're the East Coast crew doing our thing, and that's been
Mhm.
really great. And then I just have a few like pitches in development, and then people have a couple of rewrites maybe that I might do. So I'm like, usually I have like 8 things on my desk, and right now I have 4. So it's on purpose though. I'm just trying to take a breath
Of
because it's just been
course.
crazy, crazy, crazy. So,
So
but in a good way.
go
I'm
ahead, Julie.
grateful for it, but I definitely need to have like a little bit of balance.
Yes, that was my word of the year. It's not going so well.
I'm just forcing it because my blood. I was starting to not. I was starting to feel not well, and just from stress and everything. And that's one thing. I'm so grateful for all this work and all the Hallmark success. At the same time, though, I work myself into the ground, and there has to be a work-life balance, especially when
Mhm.
you have kids. And
Yeah.
yes, that's kind of. I'm trying to balance it all this year a little bit better.
And where can people find more from you? Where's the best place for them to keep up with what's going on?
So I am not the best about my social media. It's usually when something's coming out that I really get back on there and post stuff.
Mhm.
So I would say Instagram is okay. Which I think it's Julie Sherman Wolf, right? It's Julie, and then like underscore Sherman underscore Wolf, and then Twitter is at Shermwolf, and I do a lot of live tweeting when things air.
Yay,
Oh, I
that makes
love
me
that.
so excited.
But I
Can't wait
generally
for your I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've been generally not around on Twitter. I don't really have time to like maintain it, but yes, when things air, I'm there for sure. So, yes, so I'll be around, and I always try and engage with as many people as I can. It's really fun to engage with the actors too, who
Oh
are
yeah,
all
because they're usually
delightful.
live tweeting as well, right?
Yeah,
Sometimes.
yeah, and
Yeah, that's so cool.
it's it's funny because the East Coast feed is easier, and then it's like now it's midnight and the West Coast is on. I'm like, I don't know if I can do this again.
Yeah.
So you guys are gonna have to come on the East Coast feed.
Well, it's
Oh,
funny
I
'cause
do watch it in the East Coast feed.
me
Yay.
too.
Okay.
I
Okay, good.
use the Friendly app and everything
Ah.
airs in East Coast time. So, yeah.
Perfect. Yes. So
Yes.
that's pretty much it. And then there's I do have a Facebook page. It says Julie Sherman Wolf Writer, and I kind of posted that every so often. See, I'm terrible. I should be better at it, but it's just a time suck. Once I get on Instagram and start caring about that, it's really hard to it takes a long time. I don't know how you guys do it. Like it just takes a long time, and it's really hard to maintain that social media presence.
It is.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Yeah, it's definitely a big portion
That's a
of
whole other job.
Yeah.
yes, 100%.
Totally.
Well, this was so fun. I can't thank you enough for joining us. I'm so glad you agreed to do this.
Thank you so much
And-
for having me. I really appreciate
Awesome.
it.
So awesome.
We're going to leave links to everywhere you can find Julie in our show notes. You can also, if you don't have, we've sung its praises often, but the Hallmark checklist app, the Hallmark movie checklist app, you can search by movie and it'll let you know when movies are airing. So past movies, you can find them so you can catch up, you can record them, you can watch them. And thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. As always, if you enjoyed this, we would love it if you would leave a rating and or a review. Of course, we love them, but it also helps people find us in the Apple Podcast community. Until next time, have a great week. Bye.
Bye.
All right, friends, before we go, just a quick heads up. You're about to hear some ads. These little gems help us keep the show running and the Hallmark love flowing. So do with that info what you will. Grab a snack, hit the skip button, or maybe, just maybe, listen in and discover your new favorite product. Bye.